Hello everyone, it's Alessandra and today I'm going to be making black forest cake. I'm using carob powder, but if you use cocoa powder, it'll taste just like the one you grew up with, unless you've never had black forest cake before, in which case it'll be a new experience for this Halloween. First, take 1 cup of aquafaba and pour it into a big bowl, as you are going to need to use an electric whisker on this. Then add 1 tablespoon of egg replacer powder. After that, it's time to add a 2nd tablespoon of egg replacer powder. So exciting and magical. Up, there goes our cream of tartar. We're doing 1/4 of a teaspoon for that. This is our mixture after 2 minutes of mixing on high. We're not making a meringue, just trying to get a little bit of air into it. 4 minutes later, we are done. Look how pale our mixture has become. Now I'm going to add our 1½ cups of all-purpose flour to a sifter to make sure it's fluffy and light. If you use oat flour instead, add a tablespoon of flaxseed in addition to the flour. Because we sifted the flour, it's light, fluffy, and has a lot of air in it, which is good because it's a sponge cake we need. Now we're adding 1 tablespoon of baking powder. This is our leavener for the cake. Now for a traditional cake, add 1/2 cup of cocoa powder. I'm adding 1/2 cup of carob powder because it's caffeine free and I honestly just prefer the taste. Now we're adding 1 cup of coconut sugar, but regular sugar will also work, as well as monk fruit. Mix everything together. To your well-mixed dry ingredients, add 1½ cups of water. Mix this up and then fold in your aquafaba mixture. Make sure you're folding at this point and not mixing in the aquafaba because you don't want to pop any of those air bubbles. The cream of tartar can only do so much magic. There we go, that looks pretty good. Yeah. Then take the mixture and pour it into a cake pan. If it is not a silicone cake pan, please grease the cake pan before pouring the batter into it. Bake the cake at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for 15 minutes, then rotate it and bake it for another 15 minutes. Let the cake cool for 20 minutes, then put it on a cake rack and let it cool for an additional hour. This will stop the cake from splitting in half when we cut it. Do you see where the cake naturally muffins out? Yeah. That's where we're going to cut it with our serrated bread knife. Just kind of slowly go in. We're not trying to go all the way through because we're going to rotate the cake to make it nice and even. Don't want to rip it. There we go. Our cake looks beautiful and perfect because we didn't rush and we waited for it to cool completely. Some cakes may take more than an hour to cool, so please, please, please be patient. Make sure that you poke your cake with the toothpick to make sure that was even done baking to begin with. There's nothing sadder than cutting into a raw cake. Now we have 2 cans of coconut cream that we of course put in the refrigerator for a minimum of 8 hours. This will make all of the hard, delicious fatty top go to the top of the can. All the liquid that will ruin our whipped cream will go to the bottom, which is why we will now poke a hole into the top of the fat to drain the liquid. Some people save the liquid for other desserts, but my doctor said to eat less sweets, so I'm just gonna dump mine down the drain. I don't like to waste food like this, but like really, if I can't use it to make a pudding or something, then what am I supposed to do with it? Alright, I've emptied the hard parts of both cans of coconut cream into a bowl. I'm adding some cream of tartar, about 1/8 of a teaspoon. And now I'm adding 1 tablespoon of coconut sugar and mixing. If you want it sweeter, you should probably use sugar that isn't brown, unless you don't care about color. You may need to occasionally stop the mixer just to poke into a particularly hard to whisk part of coconut. Now that our cake is cool and cut, it's time to add the cherry pie filling. I'm using canned cherry pie filling, but you're more than welcome to make your own. Don't forget, we're going to save about 1/3 of the can for the top of the cake. That way the whole thing looks pretty and gets some delicious cherry. We don't want to use all the cherry in just the middle because it could also fall out, in addition to making the cake not look beautiful. As you could tell by this video, we did not go to the edge of the cake with the cherries because we're actually going to need to put a little bit of whipped cream there to make sure the filling stays in. This is going to be very easy if you're using a knife instead of a piping bag. But I'm going to use a piping bag because looks matter. And just slowly put the top of the cake back on, making sure it's even. There we go, nice and even. Sometimes you don't cut the cake well, so you have to make sure that the thin parts with the thick part, you don't want the cake to be lopsided. Just look at that, like a giant sandwich cookie. Okay, time for the coconut cream. As you can see, I'm just doing little dots where the cherry meets the cake to make sure that cherry doesn't fall out of the cake. It'll be much easier to slice this way. You should start with the middle also if you're using a knife instead of a piping bag for the same exact reason. And then you do the bottom layer of cake because that's just the easiest and, in my experience, makes the cake get like less messed up when you cut it. And then the top layer and another layer around the top of the cake to keep the cherry in. There we go, beautiful. As you can see, I went all the way up to the top, just leaving some room in the middle. And that's where our cherry filling's gonna go. This is shaping up to be the best Halloween cake ever. So far, 2022. Bloop, goes our cherry. I also made some vampire teeth. I had to use chocolate chips for this because my favorite carob company had a fire, so there were not Missy J chips at my store. You don't really need the vampire fangs, I just think they look beautiful. Many people choose to decorate Black Forest cakes with shaved chocolate, but the shaved chocolate was never a mandatory part of the cake, so I just skip it. So beautiful, I cannot wait to take a bite. Just look at this masterpiece that I made sure was completely cool before cutting in half. Just need to reiterate that because so many people mess up. And our first slice is about to come out. Absolutely gorgeous. Just look at this. And there's no oil, but still plenty of fat from the delicious coconut cream. Thanks for watching and happy Halloween! Next week, I'll show you how to make a sugar-free cherry pie filling.